A crash landing on a mysterious planet. The starship's control panel blinked furiously as warning alarms echoed through the cockpit. Jack Turner, a seasoned but weary pilot, gritted his teeth and wrestled with the controls. Flames erupted from one of the engines, and the ship veered dangerously close to a jagged alien mountain range. "This is bad. Real bad," Jack muttered under his breath. The star charts showed this as an uninhabited planet, a wasteland of craters and dead landscapes. No signs of life, no resources, and definitely no backup. As his ship spiraled down, Jack braced himself for impact. With a deafening crash, the ship plowed into the ground, kicking up clouds of dust and debris. Metal screeched as it bent and crumpled. The cockpit lights flickered and died, leaving Jack in darkness, save for the faint glow of the emergency power. Jack groaned, unbuckling himself from the pilot's seat. "Still alive," he whispered, though his body ached all over. His survival instincts kicked in. He grabbed his emergency pack, stuffed with tools, a beacon, and a small ration kit, and pushed open the hatch. The outside world greeted him with eerie silence. The landscape stretched endlessly, a barren expanse of red soil and jagged black rocks. The sky was a dull gray, with two suns hanging low on the horizon. A faint wind carried the scent of burning metal, a reminder of his broken ship. Jack examined the wreckage. "She's in bad shape," he said, patting the hull as though the ship could hear him. The left wing was completely gone, and the engine was little more than a smoldering heap. His hope of escape dwindled. He activated the emergency beacon, but a crackling sound from the transmitter told him all he needed to know. Useless. Jack was well and truly stranded. "Think, Jack, think," he said to himself, pacing around the wreckage. "First, find water. Then food. Then, figure out how to fix this mess." As he searched the nearby area for anything useful, he felt the weight of solitude pressing on him. The planet's emptiness seemed to echo in his mind. Every step he took felt pointless, until he noticed something strange. A faint shimmer caught his eye. It came from the top of a nearby hill, about a mile away. It was as if the sunlight bent unnaturally, creating a soft, glowing distortion. Jack's curiosity overpowered his caution. Slinging his pack over his shoulder, he set off toward the anomaly. The journey was grueling. The uneven ground made every step a challenge, and the oppressive heat from the twin suns sapped his energy. He stopped halfway to gulp down some water, though he knew he needed to ration it carefully. The shimmer seemed closer now, more defined. It wasn't just a trick of the light, it was something real. When Jack finally reached the hilltop, he froze. Standing before him was something he hadn't expected, a structure. It looked ancient but advanced, its surface smooth and metallic, with strange symbols etched into its surface. The shimmer emanated from the structure, like an invisible shield guarding it. And then he saw her. A tall figure emerged from the shadows of the structure. She wasn't human. That much was clear. Her skin had a faint blue tint, with markings that glowed faintly in the dim light. Her eyes were large, glowing a soft silver, and her movements were graceful yet cautious. She held a tool in one hand, resembling a cross between a wrench and a blade. Jack instinctively stepped back, his hand reaching for the small utility knife in his pack. The alien woman tilted her head, observing him with an expression that was unreadable. For a moment, neither of them moved. Finally, she spoke, her voice melodic yet commanding. "You crash. Here." Jack's eyes widened. She spoke his language. Well, almost. The words were halting and slightly distorted, but clear enough to understand. "Yes," he replied cautiously. "My ship. It's broken. I need help." The woman's silver eyes narrowed. She took a step closer, and Jack tightened his grip on his knife. But instead of threatening him, she pointed toward his ship in the distance. "Fix. I fix." Jack blinked. "You'll fix my ship." She nodded slowly. "Price. You pay." "What kind of price?" he asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. The alien woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned back toward the structure, motioning for him to follow. Jack hesitated. He didn't know this planet, didn't know her intentions, and had no idea what kind of price she wanted. But what choice did he have? His ship was useless, and without it, he wouldn't survive. As Jack followed her into the strange structure, his mind raced with questions. Who was she? Why was she here, on this desolate planet? And most importantly, what would she demand in return for her help? The answers, he suspected, were going to change everything. A strange agreement. Jack followed the alien woman through the shimmering barrier that surrounded the mysterious structure. As he stepped inside, the temperature dropped dramatically, a welcome relief from the oppressive heat outside. The interior was unlike anything he had ever seen. Walls pulsated softly with a faint glow, as though the building itself was alive. Strange symbols and patterns shifted and moved, creating a hypnotic dance of light and shadow. "Stay here," the woman commanded in her slightly stilted English. Her voice was calm but left no room for argument. Jack watched as she disappeared into a side chamber, the metallic door sliding shut behind her without a sound. He exhaled, glancing around the room. Every instinct screamed at him to be on guard, but curiosity pushed those fears aside. The alien technology around him was breathtaking. Tables seemed to float midair, holding tools and devices that hummed softly. He reached out to touch one, a cube that radiated warmth, but thought better of it and pulled his hand back. After what felt like an eternity, the alien woman returned. She carried a sleek device that looked like a cross between a tablet and a toolbox. Her expression was serious as she set it down on one of the hovering tables and turned her attention to Jack. "You want ship fixed?" she asked. Jack nodded cautiously. "Yes. Can you do it?" She pressed a button on the device, and a holographic projection of his ship appeared above it. Jack stared, amazed, as she swiped her hand through the air, rotating the image and highlighting the damaged sections. "Fixable," she said after a moment. "But not easy. Materials needed. Time." Jack frowned. "What kind of materials?" "I don't have much here." The woman's silver eyes narrowed as she studied him. "Materials, I find. Tools, I have. Work, I do. But you must do something." There it was again, her cryptic demand for payment. Jack crossed his arms, trying to mask his unease. "What do you want from me?" The alien woman paused, as if weighing her words carefully. "You go, place I cannot. Dangerous place." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous how?" She stepped closer, her gaze intense. "This planet. Ancient. Many. Secrets. Old machines. Power. But traps too. I need one thing. You bring." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. It was becoming clear that whatever she wanted wasn't going to be simple or safe. "And what is this thing you need?" he asked. She held up a small crystalline shard that seemed to glow from within. "Core," she said, "bigger than this. Hidden deep in. Old place. You go. Bring to me." Jack stared at the shard. "And what happens if I say no?" The alien woman's expression softened slightly, but her tone remained firm. "Then you stay here. Ship broken. You die." It wasn't much of a choice, and she knew it. Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Fine," he said. "But if I do this, you fix my ship. No tricks, no games." The woman nodded solemnly. "I promise. No tricks." Jack wasn't entirely sure he believed her, but what choice did he have? He glanced at her tools and then back at her. "All right. Where is this old place?" She turned and pointed to a holographic map that appeared above the device. It showed the planet's terrain in intricate detail, and her finger hovered over a jagged canyon far from their current location. "There," she said. "Many dangers. You, careful." Jack studied the map, committing the route to memory. "And what about weapons? Am I just supposed to walk in there unarmed?" The alien woman considered this for a moment before handing him a sleek metallic device that looked like a cross between a dagger and a plasma cutter. Use this. Careful. Very sharp. Jack took the weapon, its weight surprisingly light in his hand. He tested the blade, which glowed faintly at the edge, and nodded. All right. When do I leave? She tilted her head. Now. Now, Jack exclaimed. I just crash-landed here. I need time to prepare. She shook her head. No time. Sky storm's coming. Dangerous to wait. Jack sighed again, feeling like the planet itself was conspiring against him. He adjusted his pack, checked his water supply, and tightened his grip on the alien blade. All right, he said. But if I don't come back? You come back, she interrupted, her voice surprisingly firm. I believe. Jack couldn't tell if it was encouragement or a warning. Either way, he set off, the alien woman watching silently as he disappeared into the harsh alien landscape once more. The weight of her cryptic words lingered in his mind. What kind of place was he walking into, and why couldn't she go herself? The questions haunted him with every step. The hidden agenda. The jagged cliffs loomed over Jack like silent sentinels as he made his way toward the canyon, marked on the alien woman's holographic map. The air here was heavy, thick with an unnatural energy that sent shivers down his spine. Each step felt harder than the last, as if the planet itself resisted his presence. He clutched the alien blade tightly, its faint glow casting eerie shadows on the cracked alien ground. The terrain was treacherous, a mix of loose rocks and deep fissures that seemed to stretch endlessly into darkness. His breathing was shallow, partly from exertion and partly from the sense of impending danger. Jack glanced back, half hoping to see the alien woman following him, but the horizon was empty. He was alone. Why couldn't she come here herself? Jack muttered under his breath. The question had been gnawing at him since she'd given him the map. If she was as skilled and resourceful as she seemed, why send him? He shook his head, focusing on the path ahead. Answers could wait. Survival couldn't. The ancient machine. The canyon narrowed as he descended, the walls closing in like the jaws of a great beast. Strange symbols etched into the stone glowed faintly, pulsing in time with his own heartbeat. Jack stopped to inspect one, running his fingers over the ancient carvings. They felt warm, almost alive. A sudden noise broke the silence, a low hum, deep and resonant, as though the canyon itself were waking up. Jack froze, every muscle tensed. The hum grew louder, and the ground beneath him began to vibrate. Then he saw it, a massive, ancient machine embedded in the canyon wall. It was partially buried, its surface covered in the same glowing symbols. The machine stretched upward, disappearing into the shadows of the canyon's overhang. It looked like a doorway, but the edges shimmered with a strange energy, forming an impenetrable barrier. Jack approached cautiously. This had to be the place the alien woman mentioned. The core she needed was somewhere inside this ancient structure. But how was he supposed to get past the barrier? He pulled out the crystalline shard she had given him earlier. The faint glow from the shard intensified as he brought it closer to the barrier. The hum of the machine shifted in tone, almost as if it were reacting to the shard. Taking a deep breath, Jack pressed the shard against the barrier. A ripple spread across the surface, and the barrier dissolved with a sound like shattering glass. Jack stepped through, his grip tightening on the blade. Inside the machine. The interior was vast and alien, a labyrinth of corridors and chambers that seemed to stretch forever. The walls pulsed with an otherworldly light, and the air was thick with the scent of ozone. Strange machinery hummed and clicked, their purpose a mystery. Jack felt like an intruder in a place that hadn't seen life in centuries. As he moved deeper into the structure, he noticed signs of damage. Cracks in the walls, scorched marks on the floor. Something had happened here, something violent. The thought unsettled him, but he pressed on, following the faint glow of the shard as it seemed to guide him toward the core. The hum of the machinery grew louder, more rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Jack turned a corner and stopped dead in his tracks. Before him was the core, a massive crystalline structure that floated in the center of a circular chamber. It pulsed with a light so bright it was almost blinding. But the core wasn't unguarded. The Guardian. A massive mechanical guardian stood between Jack and the core. It was humanoid in shape, but clearly a machine, its surface covered in the same glowing symbols that adorned the walls. Its eyes burned with a fierce red light, and its arms ended in sharp blade-like appendages. Jack's breath caught in his throat. The alien woman had mentioned dangers, but she hadn't said anything about this. The Guardian stepped forward, its movements surprisingly fluid for something so large. A deep metallic voice echoed through the chamber. "Enturuderdtecte. State your purpose." Jack hesitated, his mind racing. Did it understand English? Could he reason with it? He decided to take a chance. "I'm here to retrieve the core." I was sent by someone." The Guardian tilted its head, as if considering his words. "Access to the core is forbidden. Leave or face termination." Jack gripped the alien blade, his palms sweating. "I don't want to fight you," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "But I can't leave without the core." The Guardian's eyes flared brighter. "Then you have in destruction." With a roar like grinding metal, the Guardian lunged. Jack barely had time to react, diving to the side as one of its blade arms slashed through the air where he had been standing. He scrambled to his feet, heart pounding, and swung the alien blade. It connected with the Guardian's arm, leaving a glowing gash in its metallic surface. The Guardian roared again, swinging its other arm in a wide arc. Jack ducked, the blade narrowly missing his head. He darted around the chamber, using the machinery for cover, but the Guardian was relentless. Every strike shook the ground, and every near miss reminded Jack how outmatched he was. Desperation fueled his movements. He noticed a cluster of exposed wires on the Guardian's back, sparking faintly. That had to be its weakness, but getting there would mean putting himself in its path. "I didn't survive a crash just to die here," Jack muttered. Summoning every ounce of courage, he charged. The Guardian swung its arm, but Jack slid under the blow, coming up behind it. He drove the alien blade into the sparking wires with all his strength. The Guardian let out a deafening, metallic scream. Its movements became jerky, sparks flying from its body. Jack pulled the blade free and struck again, severing more wires. With a final thunderous roar, the Guardian collapsed, its red eyes dimming. Jack staggered back, breathing hard. He had done it. Claiming the core. The chamber fell silent, save for the steady hum of the core. Jack approached it cautiously, half expecting another trap. But nothing happened. He placed the shard into a slot on the core, and it released from its floating position, shrinking into a more manageable size. Jack held the core in his hands, its light casting a soft glow on his face. It was warm, almost comforting. He had what the alien woman wanted. But as he turned to leave, a new thought struck him. What exactly was this core, and what would she do with it once he gave it to her? Questions swirled in his mind as he made his way out of the machine. The weight of the core, and its unknown purpose, heavy in his hands. Into the forbidden zone. Jack emerged from the ancient machine's shadowy corridors into the harsh light of the twin suns. The core in his hands radiated a faint warmth, its crystalline surface pulsing softly, almost like a heartbeat. The weight of the artifact wasn't physical but mental. He knew it was no ordinary object. Questions gnawed at him as he secured it in his pack. What was this thing? Why did the alien woman want it so badly? The journey back to her structure was a daunting prospect. The canyon was no less treacherous than before. And now Jack had the added burden of the core, and the memory of the Guardian. The fight had drained him, but there was no time to rest. The alien woman had warned of sky storms, and the clouds overhead were already gathering, dark and menacing. Better get moving, Jack muttered to himself. adjusting his pack. He gripped the alien blade tightly, its faint glow offering a sliver of comfort. The planet's wrath. As he retraced his steps, the wind began to howl, carrying with it a sharp metallic scent. The ground trembled beneath his boots, faint at first, but growing stronger with each step. Jack glanced over his shoulder, his unease deepening. He could see nothing behind him, but the sensation of being watched was impossible to shake. Halfway up the canyon, the ground split open with a deafening crack. Jack stumbled, barely catching himself as a massive fissure tore through the rocky path. From the depths, strange, vine-like tendrils emerged, writhing and twisting as though alive. The tendrils glowed faintly, much like the core, and their movements were unnervingly deliberate. "What now?" Jack groaned, his grip tightening on the blade. One of the tendrils lashed out, striking the ground inches from his feet. Jack jumped back, narrowly avoiding another attack. It became clear these weren't just plants, they were guardians of the canyon, just like the mechanical sentinel inside the structure. Jack's survival instincts kicked in. He dodged and weaved, slashing at the tendrils whenever they came too close. The alien blade cut through them effortlessly, their glowing energy dissipating with each strike. But for every tendril he destroyed, more emerged from the fissure. "This isn't going to work," Jack muttered, scanning the canyon for an escape route. His eyes landed on a narrow ledge above him, just wide enough to traverse. It wasn't ideal, but it was better than standing in the open. Using the alien blade as a makeshift climbing tool, Jack hauled himself up onto the ledge. The tendrils thrashed below, unable to reach him. He paused to catch his breath, sweat dripping from his brow. The arrival of the storm. The respite was short-lived. The sky above turned an ominous shade of black, and the first drops of rain fell, sizzling as they hit the ground. Acid rain, Jack realized, shielding his face. The alien woman's warning about the storm hadn't been an exaggeration. He needed to move. And fast. Balancing carefully on the ledge, Jack made his way along the canyon wall. The rain intensified, and the rocky surface became slick and treacherous. Thunder rumbled overhead, the sound deep and primal, as if the planet itself were alive and angry. A flash of light caught Jack's attention. At first, he thought it was lightning, but it was too controlled, too precise. He squinted through the rain and saw a small, hovering drone. Its sleek, metallic surface reflected the dim light of the storm, and its movements were deliberate, almost curious. "What now?" Jack muttered, already exhausted from the tendrils and the storm. The drone emitted a sharp, high-pitched sound, and Jack realized it was scanning him. He raised the blade instinctively, but before he could strike, the drone shot forward, narrowly missing him. It hovered a few feet away, as if studying him. Jack kept his eyes on the drone, his heart pounding. Was this another guardian, or something else entirely? The drone beeped twice, then projected a holographic image into the air. To Jack's surprise, it wasn't a warning or an attack. It was a map. The hologram showed his location in the canyon and a glowing trail leading back to the alien woman's structure. A message appeared in alien script, followed by a rough translation. "Safe passage, HFY Ord. Follow the HFY." Jack hesitated, unsure whether to trust the mysterious drone. But with the storm worsening and the canyon alive with danger, he didn't have much of a choice. He nodded reluctantly, and the drone began moving, its light cutting through the rain. Return to the alien woman. The journey back was still harrowing, but the drone's guidance made it slightly more bearable. It led him through hidden passages and natural shelters, shielding him from the worst of the storm. When Jack finally reached the alien woman's structure, he was soaked, battered, and utterly exhausted. The shimmering barrier parted as he approached, and the alien woman was waiting inside. Her silver eyes widened slightly when she saw him, and for a brief moment, Jack thought he saw relief on her face. "You return," she said, her voice calm but tinged with something Jack couldn't quite place. Jack dropped his pack onto the floating table with a thud. "Barely. You didn't tell me about the Guardian, or the tendrils, or the acid rain. The alien woman tilted her head, unperturbed. You survive. That is what matters. Jack scowled, but didn't argue. He unzipped the pack and pulled out the core, its glow illuminating the room. The alien woman's expression changed instantly. Her usually composed demeanor cracked, and for the first time, she looked vulnerable. She reached out, her hands trembling slightly, and took the core from Jack. You did well, she said softly, her voice almost reverent. This is more than I hoped. Jack crossed his arms. All right, I held up my end of the deal. Now it's your turn. Fix my ship. The alien woman nodded, her composure returning. I will. But first, I must do something. What's that supposed to mean? Jack asked, his suspicion flaring again. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned and carried the core into another chamber, the door sliding shut behind her. Jack was left alone, the faint hum of the structure his only company. For the first time since his crash, he felt a pang of unease. What had he just delivered to her? And what would she do with it? The woman's true intentions. Jack sat on the edge of a floating metallic platform in the alien woman's structure, his exhaustion mingling with unease. His mind churned with questions. What was this core? Why did she seem so desperate to have it? And what was she doing with it now? The door to the chamber she'd entered had sealed shut, emitting faint vibrations as though the room itself was alive. Great, Jack muttered, glancing around. Fix my ship, she said. No tricks, she said. And now I'm stuck here while she plays mad scientist. The room offered little comfort. The strange, glowing walls pulsed in rhythmic waves, almost like breathing. It was beautiful but unnerving. Jack tried to distract himself by examining the tools scattered across the floating tables. Most of them were incomprehensible, their functions alien in design and purpose. A few looked like weapons, sleek, dangerous-looking devices that seemed dormant but ready to spring to life. Jack's thoughts were interrupted by a sharp mechanical click. The chamber door slid open, and the alien woman stepped out. She carried the core, but it had changed. Its glow was brighter now, almost blinding, and it emitted a low hum that resonated through the room. What did you do to it? Jack asked, his voice laced with suspicion. The alien woman didn't answer immediately. She placed the core on a circular pedestal, and the room's energy seemed to shift. The glowing walls intensified, and a faint vibration ran through the floor. It felt as if the entire structure was awakening. She finally turned to him, her silver eyes glimmering with an emotion Jack couldn't quite place. It is ready, she said simply. Ready for what? Jack demanded, stepping closer. What are you planning to do with it? The alien woman hesitated, as though weighing her words. This core, it is not just a tool. It is a key. A key to what? Jack pressed. Her gaze was steady but distant, as if she were looking through him. To power, to knowledge, to survival. The truth revealed. Jack folded his arms, his patience wearing thin. You're going to have to be more specific than that. The alien woman sighed, an uncharacteristic display of vulnerability. Long ago, my people built this place. It was a sanctuary, a fortress. But we became divided. War came, and this planet was left behind. Left behind, Jack repeated. By who? By those who destroyed it, she replied, her voice tinged with sadness. The core is all that remains of our greatest creation. It can restore what was lost, or destroy what remains. Jack frowned. And you want to restore it? Yes, she said firmly. But not for me. For my people. They abandoned me here, left me to die. But I still believe they can be saved. Jack's suspicion softened, but only slightly. And what happens if you're wrong? What if restoring this power does more harm than good? The alien woman's expression darkened. It is a risk I must take. Without the core, this planet will consume itself. Its energy is unstable, its balance broken. The storms, the guardians, the tendrils you faced, they are symptoms of a dying world. This core is the only chance to stabilize it. The price of trust. Jack rubbed the back of his neck, his mind racing. All right, let's say I believe you. What does this have to do with fixing my ship? The alien woman walked over to one of the floating tables and picked up a small, orb-like device. Your ship is more than metal and wires. It is a vessel of life. If this planet dies, so will everything on it, including you. She handed him the orb, its surface warm and pulsating with energy. Take this. It will protect your ship, give it the power to escape. But it is linked to the core. If I fail, your ship will fail too. Jack stared at the orb, the weight of her words sinking in. So you're asking me to bet my life on your plan? She nodded. Yes. Jack exhaled sharply. You don't make this easy, do you? No, she said, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. But neither do you, human. A decision made. The room fell silent as Jack considered his options. He didn't trust her completely, but she hadn't lied to him, at least not yet. And she was right about one thing. The planet was unstable. He had seen it with his own eyes. All right, he said finally. I'm in. What do you need me to do? The alien woman's expression softened, a flicker of gratitude in her silver eyes. I need you to stay here. Protect the core while I activate the stabilizer. Jack raised an eyebrow. Protect it? From what? She hesitated. Not everything on this planet will want it restored. There are remnants of the war. Machines, creatures. They will come for it. Jack sighed, gripping the alien blade tightly. Of course they will. All right, go do your thing. I'll hold the fort. She nodded, placing a hand on his shoulder. Be careful, human. You are important. Jack blinked, surprised by the sincerity in her voice. Before he could respond, she turned and disappeared into another chamber, leaving him alone with the core. The first attack. No sooner had she gone than the room's atmosphere shifted. The glowing walls dimmed, and the hum of the core grew louder. Jack's grip on the blade tightened as he scanned the room. A low growl echoed from the corridor, followed by the sound of metal scraping against stone. Jack's pulse quickened. Whatever was coming, it wasn't friendly. The first creature emerged, a sleek, metallic beast with glowing red eyes and razor-sharp claws. It moved with terrifying speed, its body a blend of organic and mechanical parts. Jack barely had time to react as it lunged at him. He ducked, rolling to the side as the creature's claws sliced through the air. Without hesitation, he swung the alien blade, its glowing edge cutting deep into the creature's side. Sparks flew, and the beast let out a distorted roar. More sounds echoed from the corridor. Jack's stomach sank. There were more of them. Great, he muttered, bracing himself. Looks like I've got my work cut out for me. As the next wave of creatures emerged, Jack tightened his grip on the blade. He didn't know how long the alien woman would need, but he was determined to give her the time to finish what she'd started, even if it meant facing every nightmare this planet had to offer, a betrayal or a sacrifice. The room shook violently, the glowing walls flickering as if they were losing power. Jack gritted his teeth, bracing himself against the floating table as another metallic beast crashed through the corridor, its claws screeching against the floor. This one was larger than the others, its eyes burning with a cold, mechanical fury. You just keep getting uglier, Jack muttered, raising the alien blade. His arms ached, his muscles screaming from the relentless battle. The creatures came in waves, each one deadlier than the last, as if the planet itself had awakened to stop him. Jack slashed at the beast as it lunged, the glowing blade cutting deep into its chest. Sparks flew, and the creature staggered back, its movements jerky but still dangerous. Before Jack could finish it off, two smaller beasts appeared behind it, their glowing eyes fixed on the core. No, you don't. Jack growled, positioning himself between the core and the intruders. He fought with everything he had, dodging, striking, and using the alien blade with a precision he didn't know he possessed. But for every creature he felled, more seemed to take its place. The alien woman's return. Just when Jack thought he couldn't hold them off any longer, the chamber door slammed open. The alien woman strode in, her silver eyes blazing with an intensity Jack hadn't seen before. She carried a staff-like device, its tip glowing with the same light as the core. "Step back," she commanded, her voice sharp and authoritative. Jack didn't hesitate. He dove out of the way as she raised the staff and unleashed a beam of energy that tore through the creatures. The beasts let out distorted screams, their metallic bodies disintegrating into ash. Within moments, the room was silent once more. Jack panted, leaning on the alien blade for support. "Took you long enough," he said, his tone half-joking. The alien woman didn't respond immediately. She walked to the core, inspecting it carefully. Her expression softened, relief evident in her features. "It is intact," she said softly. Jack straightened, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "Good. Now can we get this thing working and get off this death trap of a planet?" The alien woman turned to him, her expression unreadable. "The core is ready, but there is a complication." Jack's stomach sank. "Of course there is. What kind of complication?" She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. "The core's energy is unstable. To activate it fully, someone must interface with it directly. It will take everything from them." Jack frowned. "What do you mean, everything? Are you saying someone has to die to make this work?" She nodded solemnly. "Yes. The core must bond with a living being to stabilize. Their life will fuel its activation. A sacrificial offer." Jack stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. "And you're just now telling me this? I hoped it would not come to this," she admitted, her voice tinged with regret. "But the planet's instability is worse than I thought. If the core is not activated now, it will be too late." Jack clenched his fists. "So what's your plan? Are you planning to sacrifice yourself for this?" The alien woman looked at him, her silver eyes filled with a mixture of resolve and sadness. "Yes, it is my responsibility. My people created this. I must set it right." Jack shook his head. "No, there's got to be another way." "There is not," she said firmly. "The core will only bond with one who is willing. I am willing." Jack paced the room, his mind racing. He didn't know her well, but the thought of her sacrificing herself didn't sit right with him. She'd saved his life, fought alongside him, and risked everything to fix his ship. He couldn't just let her die. "There has to be another way," he said again, more to himself than to her. "There is no time to debate," she said, stepping toward the core. "The planet is already collapsing. The storms will consume us both." Jack's decision. Jack's eyes fell on the core, its glow pulsating faster now, almost like a heartbeat in distress. He thought about everything he'd been through since crashing on this planet. The battles, the dangers, the mysteries. He thought about the alien woman, her unwavering determination to save a world that had abandoned her. And then he made his decision. Before she could reach the core, Jack stepped in front of her. "No," he said firmly. "If someone has to do this, it'll be me." Her eyes widened in shock. "What? No, this is not your fight." "It is now," Jack said, his voice steady. "You've done everything you can to help me. Let me return the favor." "You do not understand," she said, her voice breaking. "The core will take everything. You will not survive." Jack smiled faintly. "I'm a pilot. Risking my life is part of the job." She reached out, grabbing his arm. "Please, do not do this." Jack placed his free hand over hers. "You said it yourself. You're important. Your people need you. If I can give you a chance to save them, then it's worth it." Her silver eyes filled with tears, but she didn't stop him as he stepped toward the core. The glowing light enveloped him, warm and almost comforting. He placed his hands on its surface, and a surge of energy shot through him, connecting him to the planet itself. The activation. The room erupted in light and sound as the core activated. Jack felt everything. The pain, the energy, the sheer magnitude of the planet's power coursing through him. But he also felt something else. Hope. The core stabilized, its energy spreading outward in waves that calmed the storm and silenced the planet's chaos. The alien woman watched, tears streaming down her face. Jack. He turned to her, his face pale but peaceful. "Take care of my ship," he said with a faint smile. "And yourself." Before she could respond, the light consumed him entirely. When it faded, the core floated in the air, glowing steadily. Jack was gone. A new beginning. The alien woman stood in silence, staring at the core. She felt the planet stabilize beneath her feet, the energy settling into harmony. Jack's sacrifice had worked. She stepped outside, the storms gone, the sky clear for the first time in centuries. She looked up at the twin suns, clutching the orb Jack had given her. "I will not waste what you've given me, human," she whispered. With the core now stabilizing the planet, she turned her attention to Jack's ship. She would repair it, as promised, and when she was ready, she would take his story to the stars, ensuring his sacrifice would never be forgotten. Escape and a new alliance. The alien woman stood in the vast chamber, the soft hum of the core filling the silence left in Jack's absence. She felt the weight of his sacrifice pressing down on her. Jack Turner, the human who had crash-landed on this forsaken planet, had done what she never could. He had given everything to save it. For the first time in years, the planet felt alive again. The storms had calmed, the ground had stopped trembling, and the oppressive weight of decay had lifted. But it all came at a cost. The alien woman reached out, placing her hand on the glowing core. Its energy pulsed warmly, almost as if it held a piece of Jack within it. She closed her eyes, her silver irises shimmering with unshed tears. "You gave me hope when I had none," she whispered. "I will honor your memory, human." Repairing the ship. The alien woman turned her focus to Jack's ship. Though battered and broken, it was salvageable. The tools and technology within her structure made quick work of the repairs. She worked tirelessly, her hands moving with precision as she rewired circuits, reinforced the hull, and replaced damaged components with her own advanced materials. The process was both technical and emotional. Every bolt tightened, every panel replaced reminded her of Jack's determination, his willingness to stand in harm's way for a planet and a person he barely knew. She couldn't help but feel a growing respect. No, admiration, for the human who had defied the odds. Finally, after what felt like days, the ship stood ready. Its sleek design glinted under the now clear sky, a testament to Jack's resilience and her own skills. She placed the orb Jack had given her into the ship's power core. It hummed to life, its engines roaring with newfound strength. A message for the stars. Before activating the ship's autopilot, the alien woman accessed its onboard computer. She recorded a message, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "To the people of Earth, if this vessel reaches you, know that your pilot, Jack Turner, was a hero. He saved more than a planet. He saved hope itself. I send this ship to honor him and to tell this story. The stars will remember his name." She uploaded the message and set the ship's course for Earth. The orb in its core would ensure it made the journey, carrying Jack's legacy back to his people. Watching the ship lift off and disappear into the sky left her with a bittersweet ache. It was the last tangible connection she had to him, the planet reborn. With the core now stabilizing the planet, life began to return. The barren landscape started showing signs of growth. Tiny shoots of alien flora poking through the cracked soil. The skies, once choked with storm clouds, were now a brilliant shade of blue, dotted with twin suns that bathed the world in light. The alien woman took it all in, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and sorrow. Jack's sacrifice had not only saved the planet, but had given her a purpose she thought she'd lost long ago. A visitor from the stars. Months passed, and the alien woman continued her work, maintaining the core and exploring the revitalized planet. One day, as she stood on a hill overlooking a vast, blooming valley, a shadow passed over her. Looking up, she saw a ship descending through the atmosphere. It was sleek and unfamiliar, its design a blend of Earth technology and something distinctly alien. Her heart raced. Had Jack's ship reached Earth? Had his people responded? The ship landed smoothly, and the ramp lowered. A figure emerged, human, clad in a futuristic flight suit that glimmered with advanced tech. The man's expression was one of awe and determination. He carried a small device that projected a hologram, a recording of Jack. The hologram flickered to life, showing Jack's familiar, rugged face. "If you're seeing this," he said, his voice steady, "it means my story reached Earth. This planet, and the woman who saved me, need our help. Don't let my sacrifice be in vain." The alien woman felt her breath catch. She stepped forward, meeting the human envoy at the base of the ramp. He extended a hand. "I'm Commander Hayes," he said. "Jack's story inspired us. We've come to help rebuild, and to thank you." A new alliance. The arrival of Earth's emissaries marked the beginning of a new chapter for the alien woman and her world. Together, they worked to restore the planet, blending human ingenuity with alien technology. The core's energy became a beacon, drawing other species who had once called the planet home. What had once been a desolate, forgotten world was now a thriving hub of life and cooperation. The alien woman became a leader, her story intertwined with Jack's. She spoke of him often, ensuring that his bravery was never forgotten. Statues were erected in his honor, and his name became a symbol of hope across the galaxy. Legacy among the stars. Years later, the alien woman stood beneath the twin suns, gazing up at the sky. A fleet of ships, both human and alien, soared overhead, their mission one of exploration and unity. She smiled, knowing that Jack's legacy had transcended boundaries, uniting worlds in a way she'd never thought possible. The core pulsed softly in the distance, a reminder of the man who had given everything to save it. "Thank you, Jack," she whispered, "for believing in me and for giving us all a second chance." As the fleet disappeared into the stars, the alien woman turned and walked toward the valley, ready to face whatever the future held. She was no longer alone, and neither was her world.